The video began with my left hand twisted in Evan's shirt and his shoulder striking the garage wall. There was no sound. On the screen I looked controlled for half a second, then violent. Evan stumbled backward. A metal shelf shook. A box dropped behind him. His attorney paused the frame on my face. "Major Torres knows how to perform calm," he said. "The camera shows what she is when nobody is watching." Across the aisle, Evan rested a stylus against his yellow pad. He did not look at me. He watched Judge Marlowe, waiting for the image to settle before adding words. The judge turned toward me. "Miss Torres, do you deny that you are the person shown in this recording?" I looked past my frozen face. Above Evan's shoulder hung the motor oil clock from our garage. He had repaired it badly years earlier. Its second hand had run backward ever since. In the video, it moved forward. Priya Shah touched my sleeve before I answered. She had warned me. A courtroom did not authenticate instinct. It authenticated a source. If I explained the clock too soon, Evan's team would build around my explanation before our expert laid a foundation. "That is me," I said. "That is not what happened." Judge Marlowe glanced toward the sealed envelope beside her bench. My military medical file sat inside it, unopened. Evan looked over. He wore the confidence of a man who believed it was finished. I slid my notebook closer. Beneath Priya's questions was a postcard from Ramstein, its blue corner crushed in my wallet. I pressed my thumb against that edge. 9 weeks earlier, Evan had said we could settle everything privately. Custody, the house. His company. Court, he said, would let strangers divide what belonged to us. I did not understand then that he was not trying to settle our marriage. He was trying to settle the timeline. Evan could make a room look larger without moving a wall. That was his gift. He knew where to place a camera, when to soften a shadow, and how long to hold on a face before an audience decided whom to trust. I investigated patient harm for a hospital system. My work began after the damage, when everyone already had a story. I read charts, timestamps, medication logs, staffing records, and maintenance reports until the story stopped sounding persuasive and started becoming testable. For a long time, our skills fit together. He helped me record physical therapy after my injury. He adjusted the lighting so the tremor in my left hand would not become the whole picture. He labeled each clip by date, exercise, and pain level. When I could finally lift a ceramic mug without using my right hand, he brought home a cake. That was the version of Evan I kept defending after the marriage began to narrow. He knew exactly what my left hand could do. He knew which fingers would not close fully, how quickly the muscles tired, and why I opened jars against my hip. He had filmed the limits himself. He knew the weakness before any lawyer ever learned my name. Years later, he would use that knowledge to build an image that depended on everyone believing the opposite. The postcard arrived 8 months after the evacuation. Ramstein was printed across the front in blue letters above the tail of a transport plane. One corner had been crushed in the mail. The message on the back was written by a patient named Daniel Price. "You held on when my hands could not." That was all. During the flight, Daniel had been ventilated and strapped to a litter near 2 other critical patients. We hit turbulence after leaving the staging base. One restraint slipped. I used my left arm to keep his equipment from tearing loose while another nurse secured the line. The injury did not feel dramatic at first. My hand burned. Then 2 fingers stopped answering. Surgery restored some movement, not strength. Evan was the one who framed the postcard. He placed it beside my old flight glove, the one altered around the little finger after the muscles wasted. He told Sofia that courage was often boring while it was happening. I remembered that sentence because it was true. Evan had not always minimized what happened to me. Once he had understood it better than most people. For years I believed love remembered what pain had changed. That made the later betrayal harder to simplify. It is easier to hate someone who never loved you. The dangerous grief begins when they once did. After we separated, Evan and I agreed on one rule. Sofia would not be asked to choose a side. We kept equal time, exchanged school information, and attended parent meetings without turning them into negotiations. I never told her why I slept better after moving into the rental house. One evening, she sat at my kitchen counter repairing the right side of an old headset with electrical tape. Dad says you want to take his company. I want the company valued honestly. He says that means the same thing. It does not. She waited for more. I gave her less. I believed restraint would protect her. I did not understand that every empty space I left could be filled by someone who spoke with more confidence. Evan began using phrases like financial pressure and combat stress around Sofia. He never accused me directly in front of her. He suggested patterns. He asked whether I had been sleeping. He reminded her that some veterans hid symptoms well. Sofia started watching my hands too closely when I became quiet. That hurt more than an accusation. By the time the garage video existed, Evan had already built a frame around me. The clip did not create the story. It gave the story a picture. And pictures are powerful when the audience believes the camera arrived before the lie. The offer to buy Mercer Visual Strategies arrived in January. Evan called it a partnership. He said a media group wanted access to his client list, editing staff, and political contracts. He did not mention the purchase price or the closing deadline. I learned only that lawyers were reviewing growth options. In the divorce disclosures, Evan valued the company at $240,000. He said most of the income depended on his personal relationships and could disappear if he left. Then he offered me a trade. I could keep my military retirement untouched, take a share of our savings, and waive any claim connected to the business. He described it as clean. Priya called it premature. She requested a valuation and any pending term sheets, letters of intent, or acquisition proposals. Evan smiled when she asked. There is no sale, he said. Only conversations. He had signed a term sheet for $1,900,000. The buyer wanted the transaction completed within 52 days. Every delay increased the chance that the true value would enter the divorce record. Every disclosure gave me leverage he believed belonged to him. I thought we were arguing about fair division. Evan was counting backward from a closing date. The clock had already started quietly, and I did not know I was standing inside it. The garage incident began with a backpack. Sofia stood beside my car, one hand on the passenger door, while Evan told her she was not changing schools in the middle of sophomore year. She said she had already decided. He reached for the strap over her shoulder. Not hard enough to leave a mark. Hard enough to stop her from taking another step toward me. I stepped between them and moved Sofia behind me with my right arm. My left hand stayed close to my side, the way it always did when I needed balance. Let go of the bag, I said. Evan pulled once more. Sofia twisted. I turned with her. Evan's heel caught the lip of the garage mat, and his shoulders struck the drywall beside the metal shelf. A box of extension cords fell behind him. For a second, nobody moved. Then Evan looked toward the camera above the freezer. I saw that glance. At the time, I thought he was checking whether the system had recorded what happened clearly enough then. Later, I understood something colder. He was checking what the camera could be made to say. Sofia picked up her backpack. I opened the car door. Evan did not ask whether she was frightened. He only said, "This is not over." 3 days later, a process server found me outside the hospital. The emergency petition was clipped beneath a still image from the garage. In the picture, my left fist appeared twisted into Evan's shirt. Sofia was gone. The frame ended at my elbow as if no one had ever stood behind me. The attached video lasted 22 seconds. It began after Evan grabbed the backpack. It ended before he looked at the camera. There was no audio there at all anywhere. His declaration said I had become agitated during a routine custody exchange, shoved him into a wall, and frightened our daughter. He described my military history as relevant because combat-trained individuals can mask escalation until it becomes physical. I read that line twice. Then I watched the clip again. The danger of editing is not that it invents a new body. It gives the old body a different reason. Priya called before I reached my car. Do not respond to him. He removed Sofia. I know, he removed the sound. I know, the court had already set an emergency hearing. By the time I was allowed to explain the scene, Evan's version had arrived first, framed, labeled, and ready to be believed. He had not erased me. He had erased why I moved. The judge did not declare me violent at the emergency hearing. She said the court lacked enough information. That sentence still changed my life. Until the evidence could be reviewed, Sofia would remain primarily with Evan. My visits would be supervised. Exchanges would occur through a family services center. The order was temporary, but distance was immediate. Temporary can still enter a child's memory like a permanent thing. At the hospital, my director placed me on administrative leave. Patient safety investigators were expected to maintain credibility with clinical staff. A pending allegation, even unproven, created what human resources called an operational concern. Evan sent one message through the parenting application. Sofia needs stability right now. I stared at the word stability until it lost meaning. He had taken the consequence of his petition and presented it as the condition he was protecting her from. During my first supervised visit, Sofia folded the same napkin into smaller squares. "I told Dad I was not scared of you," she said. "You do not have to tell either of us anything. But if I do not, they decide." I wanted to ask what she remembered. Instead, I pushed the basket of fries toward her. The worst part of restraint is how much truth it requires you to leave untouched. Priya played the video frame by frame in her conference room. She did not ask how it made me feel. She asked what had to be true. The old motor oil clock hung above Evan's shoulder. Its second hand moved clockwise. "It has been broken for 6 years," I said. "The hand runs backward." Priya wrote one line on her yellow pad. "What else?" I leaned closer. The scar from my surgery appeared on the outside of my right wrist in the video. In reality, it crossed the left. The toolbox label behind me was reversed, but the crop removed enough letters to make the error easy to miss. Then I watched the hand gripping Evan's shirt. The fingers were closed. All of them. My left ring finger had not flexed that far since the evacuation. Priya replayed the movement. "You are saying the image is mirrored." "I am saying that hand is not the hand the court thinks it is." She stopped the video. That distinction mattered. A mirrored image did not prove the event false. It proved the exhibit had been altered before it was presented as a neutral recording. Priya circled the clock. "For now, we prove the file changed." I touched my left palm. "Then we prove why he needed it to." My first impulse was to call Evan and tell him I had seen the clock. That impulse lasted a minute. Priya closed the door. "If he knows what you noticed, he can explain around it, delete around it, or manufacture a reason. So we say nothing. We preserve everything." Notices went to the camera company, cloud provider, Mercer Visual Strategies, and Evan's attorney. Priya requested logs, source files, project files, exports, administrator history, and every device synchronized with the garage camera. We also asked the court to appoint a guardian ad litem and protect Sofia's devices before either parent could search them. I hated including her tablet in a legal request. Priya understood. "We are not making your daughter a witness," she said. "We are preventing adults from deciding what her devices remember." I sent Evan one message through the approved application. "All exchanges will follow the temporary order." He replied within 2 minutes. "Good, maybe structure will help you." I did not answer. That evening, I placed the Ramstein postcard beneath my notebook and made coffee with my right hand. The lid slipped because my left fingers could not hold it. I watched it roll across the counter. The video depended on strength I did not possess. Now it had to survive records that did. Marcus Hale met us in a conference room at Family Services. He did not ask Sofia what happened in the garage. He asked what devices had been connected to the camera system before the petition was filed. Sofia stared at the table. "My tablet," she said. "I used it for an audio project." Marcus nodded once. "Did either parent ask you to delete anything?" "No." "Did either parent ask you to choose what to save?" "No." He placed the tablet inside an evidence bag and sealed it while we watched. The restraint in that gesture mattered. He was not treating Sofia like a suspect or a witness for either side. He was protecting what the device remembered from what adults wanted it to mean. I did not ask to see the screen. Evan objected to the seizure and said the tablet belonged to the household. Marcus answered without raising his voice. A child's silence is not consent to being used as context. The judge authorized a limited forensic copy. That night I sat alone in my car outside the hospital where I still was not allowed to work. The forensic request remained open on my laptop, and cold coffee balanced in the cup holder. I copied the known file details onto a legal pad. Beneath the original camera entry, I left space for the synchronized copy, the submitted exhibit, their durations, their creation times, and every account that had touched them. Then I drew 3 columns across the page. Source, change. Purpose. For the first time since the order, I felt something other than distance. There was a version of the garage Evan had not edited, stored on a device he had forgotten to control. If the tablet had preserved it, I intended to trace every second from capture to courtroom. The first report arrived 6 days later. The tablet had synchronized a file from the garage camera at 7:14 that evening. Its duration was 33 seconds. Evan's exhibit lasted 22. 11 seconds were missing. Priya read the numbers twice before looking at me. "That does not tell us what the missing section contains," she said. "It tells us the court did not receive the first file." The forensic examiner calculated a digital fingerprint for each version. The tablet file matched the cloud copy created on the night of the incident. Evan's exhibit matched neither. His attorney blamed the camera system. He said home security applications often created duplicate versions for mobile viewing, compressed audio, and altered playback length. That explanation sounded reasonable enough to someone who did not work with records. It did not explain why the file Evan submitted had been created on a workstation registered to Mercer Visual Strategies. It did not explain why the upload occurred after midnight through his account. It did not explain why the audio track was present in the project container but absent from the export. Priya drew 3 columns on her yellow pad. Source, change. Purpose, we have the first 2, she said. I looked at the third. The tablet and cloud copy could establish what had changed. The workstation would have to establish who changed it, when, and under whose direction. The term sheet would have to explain why. Purpose was the difference between a damaged file and a decision. Dana Cho entered the case because Evan hired her. He wanted an expert who could say the video was not generated by artificial intelligence, and that the person in the frame was me. Dana agreed with both points. Then she asked for the source file. Evan's attorney gave her the 22-second exhibit on a flash drive. She asked for the native camera export, administrator logs, and the editing workstation before accepting any technical conclusion. They told her those requests exceeded the scope of her assignment. Dana wrote that sentence into her report. At the hearing, Evan's lawyer established that Dana had found no evidence of a deep fake. He relaxed as soon as she said no. Priya then asked whether the absence of a deep fake established that the exhibit was an original recording. Dana said it did not. She opened a black notebook, read the file fingerprint aloud, and gave the court the conclusions Evan's team had tried to keep outside the scope of her assignment. The file I received was a third-generation export. Its metadata shows it was re-encoded through professional editing software. Evan's attorney objected to the phrase third generation. Dana did not change it. She explained that compression could soften edges, lower resolution, and introduce artifacts. It could not account for a deliberate horizontal reversal or a manually muted audio channel. Then she looked toward Evan. That was not the question the file answered. His stylus stopped against the yellow pad. Dana displayed 2 frames side by side. In the camera copy, the red handle of Evan's toolbox was on the left. In the exhibit, it appeared on the right. The motor oil clock offered an even cleaner marker. Its numbers were reversed in one version. Its backward-moving second hand looked normal only after the image had been flipped. Evan's attorney suggested the camera application might mirror video automatically for easier viewing. Dana established that the garage camera was not a front-facing phone camera, then directed the court to the system log. Counsel admitted he did not know whether the log recorded a mirror setting. Dana did. There was no automatic mirror command in the camera software. The reversal appeared only after the file entered Evan's editing program. Priya advanced the frame until my hand closed around Evan's shirt and reminded the court that the submitted exhibit labeled it as my left hand. Dana marked the scar visible near the wrist. In the native frame, that is her right hand. Evan's stylus rolled once across the table and touched the base of his water glass. Mirroring had not invented the contact. It had reassigned the contact to the injured side of my body, the side Evan later described as evidence of uncontrolled strength. He had not only shortened the event, he had changed which hand the court believed had acted. The audio played last. Marcus asked that Sofia be excused before the recording was heard in open court. Judge Marlowe agreed. I watched the door close behind my daughter. Then the garage filled the speakers. Evan's voice came first. "You are not leaving until your mother signs." Sofia answered, "Dad, let go of my backpack." A scraping sound followed. Then my voice. "Let go of the bag." The next sound was Evan's heel catching the mat. His shoulder struck the wall. The metal shelf shook. The 11 missing seconds did not show me attacking him. They showed what he had removed before my movement began. His attorney argued that the audio did not prove intent. It could reflect a heated exchange over school paperwork. Priya did not argue motive yet. She asked only whether the court had received a materially incomplete exhibit. Dana said yes. Evan looked at the door Sofia had used. For the first time, his expression did not look rehearsed. I felt no satisfaction. Truth had returned, but safety had not returned. The recording had returned my reason, but it also returned my daughter's fear to the room. Evidence can restore context without restoring innocence. Priya closed her folder. "We now know what was removed," she said. "The next question is why Mr. Mercer needed it gone." Mediation took place in a windowless room that smelled faintly of coffee and dry erase markers. Evan arrived that morning with a proposed agreement already tabbed in blue. He would restore equal parenting time. I would return to unsupervised exchanges. Sofia could stay at her school. In return, I would withdraw the request for a forensic valuation of Mercer Visual Strategies, accept the company value listed in his disclosure, and agree that the garage video would not be challenged further. He called it a way to keep Sofia out of court. Priya read every page without changing expression. The agreement also required a non-disclosure clause covering the business, the video, and all related digital records. "What happens if Ms. Torres refuses?" Priya asked. Evan's attorney folded his hands. "The temporary order remains until the evidentiary hearing." Evan looked at me. "You know what this is doing to her." That sentence almost worked. Not because it was true in the way he meant it. Because Sofia was paying for every day the case stayed open. I imagined signing, taking my daughter home, and letting the missing 11 seconds disappear into a private settlement. Then I saw the clause requiring me to affirm that the video was substantially accurate. He was not offering custody. He was asking me to purchase access to my daughter with a lie. Evan leaned back and studied me as if patience were another editing tool. "You know how to look composed," he said. The camera caught what happens when there is no uniform and no audience. Priya did not move. I felt the old instinct to explain myself rise and pass. There had been no uniform in that garage. No audience. Only my daughter, a backpack, and a man trying to make a signature more important than her decision to leave. I looked at the proposed agreement. "When does the term sheet expire?" I asked. Evan's face changed less than a stranger would have noticed. His attorney answered first. "There is no executed sale." That was not my question. A pause followed. His silence answered more clearly than counsel did. Too long for people who had rehearsed every other line. Priya closed the agreement. Evan tapped one finger against the table. 52 days, he said. But that has nothing to do with custody. The room became quieter. It had everything to do with custody. The temporary order bought him time. The settlement would keep the company out of discovery. The video created pressure where valuation requests had not. He had not used the business to attack our family. He had used our family to protect the business. Priya wrote one word on her yellow pad. Purpose. For the next 2 weeks, Evan's offer remained open. My administrative leave continued. Supervised visits happened in a room with plastic furniture and a clock that ticked louder than conversation. During one visit, Sofia asked whether I planned to send her father to jail. No, I said. This court is deciding custody and evidence. But could something else happen? Yes, she pulled at the tape around her broken headset. Do you want it to? I could not give her a simple answer. I wanted Evan stopped. I wanted the video corrected. I wanted my work back and my name removed from every sentence that began with unstable. I did not want my daughter to lose her father. Wanting accountability is not the same as wanting someone destroyed, I said. Sofia looked unconvinced. Children know when adults use careful language around pain. That night I opened the settlement again. Equal time could begin within days. The hearing was still weeks away. Priya had warned me that even strong evidence could be delayed, narrowed, or challenged. For several minutes I considered signing. Not because I believed Evan. Because exhaustion can make surrender resemble wisdom. Then I reached the paragraph where I would waive all claims involving altered media. The price of immediate relief was permanent permission. I folded the pages into their envelope. I closed the document. Sofia apologized during our next visit. For what? The tablet. If I had logged out, none of this would be happening. The words were so quiet I nearly missed them. I placed both hands flat on the table. The tablet did not edit the video. But it found it. That is not the same thing. She looked at the one working side of her headset. Dad says people lose things because they cannot let them go. I understood then what my silence had taught her. She believed truth was dangerous because adults suffered when it survived. That was the threshold. I had spent months avoiding any action that might make Sofia feel responsible. Evan had filled that restraint with a different lesson. That peace depended on accepting the version created by the person with more control. I called Priya from the parking lot. Reject the offer. Are you sure? Yes, what should I tell them? I watched Sofia leave with the supervisor. Tell them I will not buy time with my daughter by selling the truth. Priya was silent for a moment. Then she said, I will file it tonight. The decision did not make me feel brave. It still made the next loss possible. Sometimes a boundary is not the point where pain ends. It is the point where pain stops choosing for you. By the time the evidentiary hearing began, the video had already lost some of its authority. That did not mean we had won. A damaged exhibit can still survive if the court cannot determine who changed it, when it changed, or whether the change affected the issue before the judge. Priya began with the chain of custody. Not my rank. Not Ramstein. Not the injury. She wanted the judge to see the record before hearing a story about the woman inside it or about her uniform. She called the camera company custodian, the examiner who copied Sofia's tablet, and Marcus Hale. Each witness established where the files came from, when they were created, and who had access. Evan's attorney tried to make the process sound excessive for a family case. Priya did not argue. She asked the court to mark the original cloud file, the tablet copy, and Evan's exhibit as 3 separate items. Judge Marlowe did. Only then did Priya approach the screen. Mr. Mercer's position, she said, depends on this court treating an edited product as an event. Evan looked toward the sealed envelope beside the bench. He still believed my military history was the center of the case. It was not. The center was source integrity. My past would matter later, but only after the file itself admitted what had been done. Marcus authenticated the tablet first. He explained that Sofia had not selected, exported, or renamed the garage recording. The application had synchronized the file automatically while the device remained connected to the family account. The camera company custodian confirmed the creation time. 7:14 in the evening. 33 seconds. Audio included. The cloud log showed no second capture and no system-generated shorter version. Priya played the first 11 seconds that had been absent from Evan's exhibit. Sofia's voice filled the courtroom. Dad let go of my backpack. Then Evan. You are not leaving until your mother signs. No one reacted dramatically. That made the truth feel heavier. Judge Marlowe watched the screen without expression. Evan's attorney stopped turning pages. Evan set his stylus on the table and did not pick it up again. The source held. Priya asked the custodian whether the 22-second exhibit could have been produced by the camera system. No, could the system remove one person from the frame? No, could it mute a single audio track after capture? No, the answers were ordinary. That was their strength. The camera had not misunderstood the room. Someone had changed what the room was allowed to contain. For the first time, the court was no longer deciding whether my memory competed with Evan's. It was deciding who altered the record. Dana Cho took the stand after lunch. Evan's lawyer reminded the court that his firm had retained her. Dana agreed. He asked whether the person in the video was me. Yes, he asked whether the footage had been generated by artificial intelligence. No, he sat down too early. Priya approached with Dana's black notebook. What did you request before reaching an opinion about authenticity? The native export, administrator logs, synchronized copies, and the editing workstation. Did you receive them voluntarily? No. Did the exhibit match the native file? No. Dana displayed the 2 digital fingerprints. They were different. That difference was not accidental. Then she showed the motor oil clock, the reverse toolbox label, and the surgical scar appearing on the wrong wrist. Evan's lawyer argued that compression could distort details. Dana looked directly at him. Compression can damage detail. It cannot reverse the architecture of a room. She explained that the exhibit had been horizontally flipped after leaving the camera system. The flip occurred inside professional editing software registered to Mercer Visual Strategies. Priya paused on the frame where the hand closed around Evan's shirt. In the submitted exhibit, which hand appears to make contact? The left. In the native recording, the right. The room remained quiet, but the silence had changed. It was no longer waiting for an explanation. It was measuring one. The clerk brought the sealed envelope to Judge Marlowe. She put on the red-framed glasses she used when reading protected records. Before opening it, she explained that the court had reviewed my military medical file in private. Only information directly relevant to physical capacity would be read into the record. I kept my eyes on the postcard beneath my notebook. Judge Marlowe unfolded one page. Major Lena Torres retained only 8% functional grip in her left hand after permanent nerve damage sustained while securing 3 ventilated patients during an aeromedical evacuation. Evan looked at me then. Not at the screen. At my hand. The color left his face slowly, beginning around his mouth. The judge continued. The limitation was documented repeatedly over 11 years, including after surgery and rehabilitation. Priya asked that the line be considered with the mirrored frame. Evan's attorney objected that an old injury did not establish what happened in the garage. Judge Marlowe agreed with part of that argument. The medical record does not decide the event, she said. It does, however, bear directly on whether the exhibit assigns force to the correct limb. That distinction mattered. The file did not rescue me because I had served. It corrected the physical claim on which Evan's version depended. My history was not a medal placed on the scale. It was a measurement, not a story. Dr. Everett Lane testified by video from his workshop. Behind him, a brass clock lay open under a magnifying lamp. He had performed the final nerve assessment before my medical retirement and reviewed later tests from civilian specialists. Priya asked him to explain 8% functional grip without medical jargon. He lifted a paper cup. Major Torres can steady something this light for a short period, he said. She cannot close all 4 fingers under resistance. 8% grip can steady a paper cup. It cannot drive a grown man into a wall. When Evan's lawyer suggested that adrenaline might temporarily increase strength, Dr. Lane acknowledged that it could improve effort but not reconnect damaged nerves. He displayed measurements from 3 years. The numbers varied, but the limitation remained. Priya then showed him the native video. He watched my right hand move across Evan's chest while my left stayed near my side and said the movement was consistent with my documented function. The mirrored exhibit assigned the action to the wrong hand. Evan's attorney pressed him on intent. Dr. Lane did not claim to know why the file had been altered. I can say the physical claim created by the altered image is incompatible with the medical record. The answer did not reach beyond his expertise. That was why it held. The final layer came from Evan's workstation. An examiner had created a forensic image after the preservation order. Deleted exports were gone, but the editing program had retained project caches, autosaves, render previews, and command history. Priya displayed the project timeline. The examiner placed a black evidence drive on the witness rail. Plastic clicked against oak. In the silence that followed, I could hear the courtroom ventilation and the slow roll of Evan's stylus across the table. The project history appeared on the screen. The examiner identified each command in order. At 11:48 that night, Evan's account imported the garage source. At 11:51, his account flipped the image horizontally. At 11:54, a senior editor's account cropped the frame until Sofia disappeared. At 11:57, the same editor's account muted the audio channel. At midnight 6, Evan's account exported the 22-second version filed with the court. The command history separated the architect from the executor. Evan chose the version he wanted. The senior editor performed the final crop and mute under his direction. Then the examiner opened the recovered instruction Evan had sent to that editor. Use the version that keeps Sofia out. I only need the part where Lena loses control. Priya placed the $1,900,000 term sheet beside the evidence drive. Paper brushed across wood. The buyer's deadline and the custody pressure occupied the same 52 days. Evan's attorney objected to motive. Judge Marlowe overruled him. The representative from the acquiring company stood, whispered to counsel, and left the courtroom. Evan finally looked at me. I spoke once. You reversed the truth. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The video had begun as his strongest witness. By the end of the hearing, every choice inside it had become testimony against him. Judge Marlowe returned the next morning with a written order. She denied Evan's request for sole custody and vacated the emergency restrictions that had limited my contact with Sofia. My parenting time would be restored in stages, beginning with unsupervised weekends and expanding after review by Marcus Hale. All communication between Evan and me would remain inside the parenting application. Neither of us could change Sofia's school, medical care, or primary residence without agreement or court approval. The judge did not call Evan a criminal. She said the family court was not the place to determine criminal liability. She referred the altered exhibit and the related testimony to the proper authorities and reserved sanctions until the financial discovery was complete. Evan's attorney asked whether the court intended to suspend his parenting time. Judge Marlowe looked toward the empty chair where Sofia would have sat. No, she said. This court will not answer the misuse of a child by removing the child's parent without evidence that such removal serves her. That was not mercy for Evan. It was protection for Sofia. The order stopped the lie. It could not make the previous weeks disappear. A court can reopen a door. It cannot return the days a child spent believing her mother needed supervision. The acquisition did not close. The buyer sent notice that the transaction was suspended pending review of the litigation, the company's disclosures, and the integrity of materials produced by Mercer Visual Strategies. No agents entered Evan's office. No one placed him in handcuffs. The consequences arrived through email, escrow instructions, and calendar cancellations. A forensic accountant received access to the company records. The court ordered Evan not to transfer ownership, destroy business files, or move proceeds outside the ordinary course of operations. His partners removed his administrator privileges from the editing server until the review was complete. The senior editor, whose account appeared in the command history, was also removed from active projects pending the same review. For a man who had built his identity around controlling the final version, losing access to the project files was its own kind of silence. Priya warned me not to celebrate. The sale is delayed, not dead, she said. The sanctions are not final. And a referral is not a conviction. I know, I did know. Military medicine had taught me that stopping the bleeding was not the same as healing the wound. The hospital ended my administrative leave after receiving the court's findings. My badge worked again on Monday morning. I stood outside the employee entrance for several seconds before using it. Some doors open quietly after your name has been returned to you. Evan apologized to Sofia during a session with the family counselor. I was not in the room. Marcus later said the apology began well and then weakened under explanation. Evan told her he had been afraid of losing the company. He said adults sometimes made bad decisions when they believed everything they had built was being taken away. Sofia asked whether that meant he had changed the video. He said yes. She asked whether he had known it could keep her from me. He did not answer immediately. That pause became the part she remembered. When she came home, she placed her broken headset on the kitchen counter and stood beside the refrigerator. I still love him, she said. I know. Are you mad about that? No, he lied about you. Yes, so what am I supposed to do with both things? I wanted to give her a sentence that would organize the world. There was none. You do not have to solve your father to love him, I said. And loving him does not require you to pretend he did not hurt us. She nodded, but relief did not arrive. Children do not experience justice as a clean ending. They inherit every truth the adults were too frightened to carry honestly. Later, Priya showed me a proposed order freezing the proceeds from any future sale of Mercer Visual Strategies. The language protected my marital claim, litigation costs, and potential sanctions. It also placed Sofia's education account inside the freeze. That money could be reached if the business debts grow, Priya said. The account held $116,000. Evan and I had funded it since Sofia was born. Some deposits came from my flight pay. Others came from his first profitable contracts. I asked whether the court could separate it. Priya looked at me carefully. You would be protecting money Evan may otherwise need to satisfy claims. It was never his emergency fund. She revised the order. The education account was placed beyond the reach of business creditors, attorney fees, and either parents' personal withdrawals. It could be used only for Sofia's tuition and approved educational expenses. Evan did not oppose that part. It was the first decision we had made together in months, though neither of us spoke directly. I did not ask the court to leave him with nothing. Nothing would still have a daughter's name attached to it. Reckoning is not measured by how completely another person falls. Sometimes it is measured by what you refuse to let fall with them. I returned to the hospital on a Monday morning in October. My badge opened the employee entrance on the first try. Inside, the air smelled like floor polish, burnt coffee, and the faint plastic scent of new tubing. Nothing had changed, which was almost painful. People still hurried past with charts tucked under their arms. A transport alarm sounded near radiology. Someone laughed too loudly by the elevators. My supervisor met me outside the patient safety office. You do not owe anyone an explanation, she said. A few people had already heard pieces of the story. Some looked curious. One colleague asked whether I wanted to correct the rumors. The findings are in the record, I said. That was enough. My first case back involved a medication dose given 30 minutes late. No one had died. No one had lied. A nurse had been covering 2 units because a call-out was entered under the wrong code. I spent the morning comparing schedules, pharmacy timestamps, and staffing logs. Ordinary work felt like a privilege once more. By lunch, my left hand had begun to ache. I opened a yogurt cup against my hip and kept reading. Getting my job back did not feel like triumph. It felt like being trusted with small facts again. After someone has tried to redesign your life, the return to ordinary truth can feel almost sacred. Sofia found the Ramstein postcard looking for tape. It had slipped from my notebook and landed beneath the kitchen drawer where I kept batteries and things that did not belong elsewhere. She read the front first. Then she turned it over. You held on when my hands could not, she said. I nodded. Was that one of the patients? Yes, the 3 on the plane. Yes, she waited. For years I had answered questions about the evacuation with as little detail as possible. I had called it work. I had called the injury bad timing. I had let Evan tell the warmer version because he once understood how to do that without making me feel displayed. This time, I told Sofia about the turbulence, the loose restraint, and the way fear changes the sound of breathing inside an aircraft. I did not make myself heroic. People kept each other alive, I said. That is what I remember. Sofia placed the postcard beside my altered flight glove. We should frame both sides. Most frames hide the back. She found one made of 2 glass panels and left the crushed blue corner visible. The message could be read from either direction. Nothing was cropped. When we hung it near the kitchen table, the postcard looked smaller than the story Evan had tried to build around me. That was exactly why it mattered. Evan continued seeing Sofia under the structured parenting plan. Some ended with her coming home quiet, placing the broken headset on the counter, and going upstairs. I did not ask for reports. I asked whether she felt safe. When she said yes, I let the rest belong to her. The investigation into the altered exhibit continued. The business valuation continued. Lawyers kept sending documents with words like sanctions, disclosure, and preservation in the subject line. None of it moved as quickly as anger wants justice to move. I stopped waiting for one punishment to make the story complete. Evan had lost the version of events he believed he could control. Whether he lost the company, paid fines, or faced another court would be decided by processes larger than my satisfaction. My work was smaller. I kept the parenting schedule. I attended counseling with Sofia when she asked. I signed school forms. I relearned how to sleep without checking the application after midnight. The postcard remained beside the flight glove. A picture can be trimmed until cruelty looks like concern and restraint looks like guilt. A life is harder to edit. It leaves witnesses in the body, in timestamps, and in the people who remember what the missing seconds contained. Justice did not return the marriage I thought I had. It gave my daughter something more useful. Somewhere, someone is being judged by a version of events built by the person who controlled the camera, the money, or the room. They may not need louder anger. They may need permission to preserve the source, keep the record, and stop negotiating with a lie. If this story reminds you of someone living inside an edited version of their own life, share it with them today. The judge opened my sealed Air Force file. Sofia opened the whole frame.